Welcome to One Mind Brainwaves. I'm Brandon Staglin, your host. Today's topic is workplace programs for mental resiliency. Several studies have shown that when companies take care of their employees through mental health benefits and programs, it makes for more productive, more engaged, and happier people in the workplace and in their lives. Joining us today are two executives in companies that are doing pioneering work in workplace programs for mental resiliency, and they'll share about their programs, what other companies can do to help their employees with their mental health. Also joining us today is singer-songwriter Jessie Collin Young, founding member of the Youngbloods, here to perform one of the most beloved songs of all time. But first, a story. This may help to illustrate the need for workplace programs to help people who are experiencing mental health challenges and foster acceptance and respect and empowerment of people with neurodiverse conditions within the workplace. This is very important. So I used to write a blog for One Mind's website back in the 2000s, and this blog attracted a number of followers, and one of the followers was very vocal and passionate and articulate about her experiences with borderline personality disorder, a lesser understood mental health condition. And I wanted to help her express that for the world, and she wanted to do so. So I invited her to be a guest blogger on the blog, which she did. Her post was beautiful, attracted a lot of great feedback. She emailed me about a year later, and she let me know that she wanted me to take the post down. I was a little bit disappointed to hear that because it was such a great post, but she actually had been applying for a job at a company. And after nearly getting to be accepted at the company, she learned at the last minute she wasn't going to be hired. And she knew that that the recruiter had Googled her, and she figured that the recruiter had found that blog post that she had written, and it was likely a case of discrimination in that case. So I did take the post down, but that just underscored for me then, and still does now, the importance of acceptance of people who experience mental health challenges as just as competent as anyone else in the workplace. Now, One Mind has started a division called One Mind at Work, which is one of the leading programs in the world to help companies share best practices and offer assistance to promote those best practices within their company. And two of these companies are Otsuka Pharmaceutical and Silicon Valley Bank. And with us today are two leaders from those organizations here to talk about their programs. We'll get to them in just a minute. But first, singer-songwriter Jessie Collin Young, a true pioneer of the American genre of music. He's founding member of the Youngbloods and a singer-songwriter, and still rocking it today after 50 years in the music industry, and is a great performer. Jessie, we're sorry, I'm tongue-tied. Jessie, we're so excited to have you today. Welcome to Brainwaves.
Oh, my pleasure.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about your work and what you've done. Get Together. A casual glance at the internet reveals that there's widespread agreement that this is a song of peace and understanding that we all need, especially right now. Can you please set the stage for us? When you first recorded this song back in 1967, what was going through your mind, and what does it mean to you today?
You know, it was when I first heard it. It was an epiphany. I mean, my life changed. That song, I mean, the clouds opened up, except I was in a nightclub. There weren't any clouds. But something happened. I grew up in New York City. I've always been pointed down the angry young man path. And my manager even said to me, "What are you singing that song for, man? I said, "This is it. This is my new life. I'm going peace and love." And it just, I fell in love with that song, and so I carried that. I mean, people have always wondered or asked me, like, the Kingston Trio recorded it in the airplane and this and that, and that. It never took off. I said, I think it was love. I love that song. And that's what made the difference, I think. That it was time, when it was first released, it was the summer of love. And it was a hit only probably in San Francisco and Seattle on the North Coast. And then 2 years later, re-released in 1969, you know, the summer of Woodstock. So,
Yeah. What an amazing song that was and still is today. It's a beacon for so many people and so deep and meaningful. You know, and you're continuing to do original work today. Your podcast, Tripping on My Roots, enables your guests to talk about their musical influences and mentors. And what are some of your creative influences for your art?
well, I started as a kid on Long Island listening to doo-wop and Elvis eventually. And, you know, Elvis really led me to the blues. I didn't know what he'd been listening to. There were no blues stations in New York in that 1952. But the next artist to really influence me beyond Chuck Berry and Ritchie Valens and all this wonderful music that was coming off the radio and Little Richard was T-Bone Walker. And I'm sure Elvis was listening to T-Bone Walker. So then I explored the generation back, and T-Bone led me to B.B. King and B.B. to Muddy Waters. And then, so there was that very strong influence. And I got to be friends with Lightnin' Hopkins and Mississippi John Hurt, at the end of their lives out there touring, the guys who had, you know, brought that music to America, to us, to white America. What a wonderful gift.
It's tremendous to hear. Thanks for going over that, Jessie. And, you know, an artist we had on last week, Ketch Secor of the Old Crow Medicine Show, he was talking about how there's a saying that musicians and songs that are classic songs that we have in our society and our culture are like links in a chain that we pass down, artists pass down from one generation to another, those links in the chain. I think Pete Seeger said that, is what he said. And that, you know, they still have meaning for us even generations down the line. Do you find that to be true?
Yes, Pete was there. Beyond the blues, then I discovered mountain music and Pete Seeger. You know, he was the grandfather of the folk revolution. And even, I remember I was buying records. I was in Trenton, New Jersey, and after John Lee Hooker, there was a Joan Baez record. I had never heard songs like Silver Dagger, and that blew me away. And then Folkways Records started to put out records with country blues and with country music that was recorded in the country, in people's homes, probably during the Depression. Amazing. I mean, it was just one flower after another opening up for me. And then I went on from there to jazz, listening, because I moved to the Ridgetop, and the only station I could get was a jazz station, K-Jazz, out of San Francisco. And so I listened to Miles and John Coltrane and all the others. And that eventually became a part of my music. Now my favorite artist is Yo-Yo Ma, because every note he plays is so, it's incredible. It's so full of love. His work, his love of his work. Yeah. And I'm sure, you know, that's really that's where I am as an artist. I will never be the kind of concert artist that Yo-Yo is, but in my own genre, that's what I care about. I want it to all sound, I love it, and I want it to say each note, you know, to have that love in it.
And that comes through so beautifully in the music that you record and perform. And Get Together is a super example of that. And as well as the album you just released, Dreamers, which you released just last year. I'm listening to it. It rocks. I'm really impressed, and I really enjoy it. You've been doing a lot these last 2 years, writing, touring, and performing. Do you find that audiences today, how do they compare with audiences of say, 1967? Is there still a hunger for socially conscious music and art as there was back then?
When we put the band together in 2017, my son Tristan, those are all his classmates from Berklee College of Music, that band on Dreamers. It's just, no, there's no studio musicians, it's me and them. And they loved the 60s music, and the audiences. I hadn't played a long time bout with Lyme disease, took me off the road probably for 10 years. I don't think I'd performed. And when I started performing with them, the audiences were hungry for music that meant something. And the new music we were playing before we got to recording Dreamers, like Cast a Stone, things that are very, very political, but all heartfelt. It was wonderful. And then here we are in COVID times, and Connie and I just decided we would do at the beginning of this stay at home, that we'd record one song at a time. She just said, I think we're going to be bored. You better get your guitar and we'll record Sugar Babe. And you know, people might need a little cheering up. So, okay. So we did that, and then we loved it, and people loved it. So we did it again and did it again. It became our full-time job, kind of, to get a song ready. I hadn't played by a solo in decades, so each day I would have to work on a song, an arrangement, you know, that was just me. And I started to grow as a solo artist again, and at the end, probably of one song at a time, which I hope hasn't ended yet, but my manager, David Spiro, and my label, BMG, said, Jessie, look at these figures on the people listening to stuff. You should make a solo album. And so I did. It's called Highway Troubadour. And I get to listen to the mastering probably after talking to you all. And it doesn't come out till Black Friday, but it's been a wonderful trip discovering, you know, through giving the music to people at a time when they need it. And especially, yes, this time when, besides COVID, there is so much division. When Get Together first came out, it was a very divided country, pro-war, anti-war. And it is, it's a perfect time for music. Music heals, music brings people together. At least I've always felt that that's what I'm trying to do.
You are such a healer, and it's a labor of love, it seems, that you do to bring this music to people even today during these troubled times. Thank you for doing that. Can you please share some of your love and your message with us today, with the original song Get Together?
Sure, I'd love to. Just happen to have a guitar here. Don't leave home without it.
Thank you.
Love is but a song we sing. Fear's the way we die. We can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. And though the bird is on the wing, and we may not know why, come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. some may go. People we will surely pass. When the one that left us here returns for us at last, we are but a moment's sunlight, and we're fading in the grass. Come on, people now, smile on each other, everybody get together, try to love one another right now, right now. Come on, people now, smile on each other, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. If you hear the song we sing, people, you will understand. Listen, we hold the key to love and fear, all in our trembling hands, and just one key unlocks them both. It's there at our command. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now, right now, right now.
Oh, thank you, Jessie. Wow, what a beautiful performance of such a beautiful song. Thanks for performing that. It felt so good to hear that again. Does it feel good for you to perform that again?
It's a prayer get together, and the more you sing it, I've been singing it all my life, but every time it is like I feel like, yes, we can make this happen.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that with us, Jessie. It's a message we all need to hear, and I'm so glad to hear it myself right now today and with our viewers. Jessie, thank you so much for being with us on Brainwave today and sharing that with us. Here now to discuss what companies can do to promote employees' mental resiliency during challenging times like today are Mary Michael, Vice President of Patient Advocacy and Stakeholder Management at Otsuka America Pharmaceutical, and Chris Edmonds Waters, Chief Human Resources Officer for Silicon Valley Bank. Please remember, you can post questions for our guests at any time. Mary and Chris, thank you so much for being on Brainwaves today.
Pleasure being here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's great to see you both. We'll start with you, Mary. Mary, it's great to see you again today. And I know you're going to be participating in our One Mind at Work Global Forum coming up next week, which is exciting. I look forward to seeing you in that live stream. Can you please tell us about the programs and benefits that Otsuka America Pharmaceutical has offered to its employees before the pandemic, and why mental health is such an important area of focus for the company?
Well, thank you so much for having me today. So Otsuka, as you know, or maybe the audience may know, we are committed to the mental health space. And I really want to emphasize mental health or wellness, because I think that is really where we all aspire to go to, right? It's not about just treating mental health when it happens. And I think that something that I learned at One Mind at Work a few years ago, when I think the HR business partner from Levi Strauss said it, 5 out of 5 of us has been impacted or gets touched by mental illness throughout our lives. So I think if we start out with that baseline, then we know that all of us will experience mental illness either directly or indirectly in our lifetime. And what I would say at Otsuka, this is really built in the DNA of our company, because our motto is about bringing better products for better health worldwide, right? It's not about like just curing or treating. It's about health. And so from an HR standpoint, our business partners have really identified things like apps, wellness apps, so that people can learn how to meditate. They might have access to yoga, techniques or yoga exercise and movements, as well as overall like nutrition. So it's really about looking at the holistic health and well-being of the individual, which also encompasses mental health strategies, if you will, to reduce stress and to deal with, relaxation techniques and things like that. So that was in place even before the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. It sounds like you had a lot of great initiatives to help employees maintain their mental resilience. And what you said about 5 out of 5 experiences some sort of mental health challenge, all of us in our lives, in our time, that really resonates. And so it's important to take care of everyone. I think that's kind of what you were saying. We need to be there for each other, like Jessie, Colin Young had been saying in his song. We need to get together and support each other. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Chris, same question to you. Tell us about Silicon Valley Bank's program for employee mental resilience before the pandemic. And what were some, oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what were some of the key resources you made available?
Our approach is pretty consistent with what Mary described for her organization in terms of I think kind of a holistic view of well-being, if you will. And one of the things I think thematically, my hunch is true for Mary's organization, which is also true for ours, is the destigmatization of the issue itself. We want to make sure that our employees have the wherewithal, and of equal importance, their families have the wherewithal and the support. When we talk about putting our money where our mouth is, that we're an employee first, values-based organization, that really shows up in our benefits coverage for our workforce in a huge way. So whether it's what Mary described as it relates to apps and dietary habits, et cetera, or what we've done during the pandemic, which is a lot of curated experiences, podcasts, if you will, on a weekly basis, we're bringing their full throttle kind of effort to make sure we're wrapping our arms around philosophically and pragmatically around our workforce for all the obvious and honorable reasons. And it's a long-term game. This can't be episodic. It's got to be something that's really grounded in practical, great treatment protocols with really good input, advice, and strategy, which I'll tell you, I'll bang the drum loudly in this conversation with everyone virtually today. The One Mind initiative is phenomenal at helping you sharpen your saw about what to ask for, know what to listen for, how to advocate for your workforce in a way that's profoundly different than you otherwise would if you didn't have their coaching and advice as you get into the conversation.
Wow, that's great to hear that One Line of Work has been so beneficial for your work at Silicon Valley Bank. And it's also great to hear that you have these wonderful programs for decreasing stigma. That is so important. We interviewed, you may have heard of Temple Grandin. We were so lucky to have her on the show.
Oh my God, she's amazing.
Yeah.
What an inspiration.
Yeah, right? Talk about walking the talk.
Yeah, and she and her other guest, John Elder Robeson, were talking about neurodiversity in the workplace and how people who have different mental health challenges may have great strengths in areas that people who are considered neurotypical don't. And so I think if you can destigmatize and accept and empower everyone, companies and everyone can benefit from the strengths each person has.
Well, I think that I'll be curious, Mary, what you think about this. If I may, Brennan, for just a second, is that all right?
Yeah.
I'll be curious, and I'm curious if the viewers have noticed the same thing. I have a kind of a hypothesis, which is that probably like 6 to 8 weeks ago, there was a rationalization, a reckoning in the ether. We all kind of went, oh God, this isn't going away. There is something about living off the fumes of transitioning to working from home, the energy that all that gets pent up around that. And now we realize, oh crap, we're like in it for the long haul. And everything you could turn a blind eye to or say, well, it's not that bad or it's not that much of an issue, squarely comes into focus, including mental well-being. and mental health issues. And so now here we are, we're living through dealing with this paradigm shift that's called a pandemic, and everything's topsy-turvy, right?
Absolutely. So if I could just share with you, one of the things that inspired me, as somebody in this space, when I was watching all the daily, news shows from, our governors, talking about the COVID numbers and what they were doing for state readiness and what have you, everyone talked about, well, make sure that you take care of yourself, mental wellness, right? Have a mental check-in, but that was it.
Right.
It was like, well, what does that mean? So to be quite honest, Chris, and Brandon may be aware of this, one of the things that we did, because we work with collaborators like the American Psychiatric Association Foundation and NAMI and other great organizations. And what we said was, let's put our money where our mouth is. And we created a resiliency video series that we shared. And our premise was, we want this out to everybody in the universe that has access to, virtual reality and, YouTube channels and what have you. And people volunteered from these organizations to share their resources and tools, because we think that those who might not have had access to some of these tools, could then find some resource that they could tap into. But I think you're right. I think we transitioned from a crisis, chaotic standpoint to this new norm. And I've been coining the term virtuality. Yeah. Because that's really where we're living now.
Right. Well, and the other, realize we're kind of taking over the conversation a little bit more. Can we keep going, Brendan?
Yeah, go ahead. This is great.
Yeah. So what I also know is to be true about this is what I call decision fatigue, where the notion of, like, we're all, at Silicon Valley Bank is a commercial bank. We bank entrepreneurs in life sciences, technology, and premium wines. We own a lot of the market share. We're very successful. We care about entrepreneurs, and it's a great organization. So that's my pitch for SVB. But we've been working from home since March, like many companies around the world, right? And so what I noticed is there's like this decisioning fatigue around still working from home. And so standards like hygiene standards start to slide because, well, it's not that bad. Or the mental health stuff couldn't be that serious. And you realize it's quite there's a lot of gravitas around the question and gravity around the whole situation in ways that are unknown and unintended. That we have got to be diligent about for each other, for our society, and for our workforce more specifically.
Totally, I'm experiencing that myself in terms of the need to not be totally driven and focused on only work most of the time.
Yeah,
because I'm working from home. It kind of blurs the lines between personal life and work life.
Totally.
And working until sometimes late at night. And I'm understanding finally now something I kind of knew intellectually even before the pandemic, but I'm learning it firsthand now. It's not sustainable. I mean, you need to take care of your mental health. You need to get enough sleep. So I've been trying to do that over the last few weeks and been getting better at it, getting exercise, meditating when I have the time, playing my guitar, which is a wonderful release and means of soothing and invigorating myself, So I've been trying to take better care of myself because I'm learning now, finally, at that kind of 6 to 8 week ago stage that you mentioned, the need to take this seriously. And I hope companies will understand that for their employees in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I would add to that from a post-pandemic or let's say peri-pandemic standpoint, because we're still living through that right now, is that from a company standpoint, something that I so admire about our HR business partners is that they've really emphasized the employee assistance programs, EAP, which I know that a lot of employees don't even understand that's really there as a resource to sort of lighten your load and your burden about childcare issues, elder care issues and what have you. And really emphasizing those resources, as well as we have an app called WHIL, WHIL, and that is the app that allows us as employees to tap into like meditation training, sleep habits, where you can, I listen to storytelling or music when I'm having difficulties falling asleep, because what I think we failed to recognize, and I heard this from a psychiatrist, is that our brains were so used to, like, you drive to work, you get your coffee, you go and talk to so-and-so, and your brain was in a routine. So your brain wasn't really working hard during this commuter workplace, right? Now that it's virtuality, everything that we're doing is uncharted territory.
Mm-hmm.
And so our brains are working even harder. And so, to Brandon's point, we really have to give it love and care.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like training for a marathon. You've got to really exercise that brain and give it some rest and give it a little bit of a break in between all of this work that we're trying to burn and churn through,
Mm-hmm.
and take care of that particular organ, because it's working on overtime in more ways than we could probably appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're a parent with young kids and those kids are at home. I mean, our sons are a junior at UCLA and a senior at Army Navy Academy in Carlsbad. So we're lucky that both of our boys are towards the more senior end of growing up, if you will. If I had young ones, I would just be chewing my upper lip off. It would be crazy. I don't know how I would do it. I think empathy, mental well-being, and empathy has got to be the starting point. Don't you?
Yeah, I agree. Some of our employees at One Mind have little kids, and also at Stagland Family Vineyard, and so it's important, I think, to and I'm trying to practice this, to give them the time they need for their families, while also maintaining a good work schedule that's healthy for them and still productive at the same time. It's a balance that has to be navigated, but with utmost respect for each employee's, personal and family mental health needs.
Yeah.
We're talking today, viewers, with Mary Michael, the Vice President of Patient Advocacy and Stakeholder Management for Otsuka America Pharmaceutical, and Chris Edmonds Waters, Chief Human Resources Officer for Silicon Valley Bank. Remember, you can post questions for our guests at any time. And please, if you have any comments to share about what you like or don't like about how companies are handling the mental health for their employees, please share them with us today. Also, if you could, please share where you're from. And then finally, if you have any anything you'd like to, if you feel that the information our guests are sharing today is useful for you or somebody else, please share this webcast with others. So back to our guests. Chris, the pandemic, and we were talking about this, has completely transformed work and life,
Mm-hmm.
blending the two like never before. And, can you give some examples of what companies can do to help employees manage that additional stress of working from home? We were just talking about that. What are some examples?
Yeah, I would say two things. I'm gonna back up on the question a little bit, and this is maybe the infomercial part of my commentary, if that's okay. I'm going to be a ginormous advocate for the One Mind initiative. So for all of our viewers in today's conversation, if you've not, and if you're an HR professional or a benefits professional, if you've not tapped into the One Mind initiative, it's a huge missed opportunity. And I'll tell you why. In my experience, no matter how effective and how much you think you know about what to ask for, what to listen for, how to negotiate, how to even think about the construct about mental well-being in the workplace, the One Mind initiative is like on steroids about how to approach all those facets of the question. The level of rigor, of candor, of expectation setting, of insight is incredibly powerful. So I'll just say to your question, Brandon, from a grounding kind of foundational perspective, whoever's viewing this today's discussion, you've got to get yourself looped into the One Mind thing, because you will walk away with more insight and rigor about how you think about the questions themselves than you ever would have imagined. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is we have taken a very deep approach to making it okay. The story that you shared at the beginning, I think was emblematic of the stigmatization of mental wellness issues as it relates to the woman's experience that you shared with us. And I think that I don't think this could be an episodic narrative. This has to be kind of like knitting a sweater or weaving a story together One success builds on the other, and so solving one issue builds on solving another issue, if you will. So we take a very holistic approach relative to podcasts, making sure we underwrite a larger proportion of our employees' healthcare costs. We pay for roughly 80% of our employees' fully loaded costs for our benefits. The employee incurs roughly 20%. So when I talk about SVB being a values first, putting our money where our mouth is kind of place, that's proof of that, I think, through my lens, if you will. And I think making it okay to talk about it is really, really important. So podcast programs, weekly podcasts around something we call Family First Fridays. We have a Wednesday podcast that's all about mental well-being. So we keep it very much in the zeitgeist of the air we breathe at SVB, even though it's virtual. We are big time on we very strong communications platform that we leverage quite a bit. So I guess the last thing I would say before I shut up and pass it to Mary, I'm being a ball hog with time, I apologize, is taking the right partnerships internally so everyone can get leverage out of the full organization. This can't just be an HR thing. It's got to be everyone leaning in to kind of own the conversation and elevate it. How about for you, Mary?
Thank you so much, Chris. If I could just build on that, and Brandon, we've talked about this before at One Mind at Work. And I think that when we look at inspirational companies who have really taken mental wellness as a priority for the organizations, for us at Otsuka, storytelling is in our DNA. It has always been a way that we share best practices, failures and triumphs and what have you. And I think that in the mental wellness area, more so than ever, now that we're in this virtual work environment, we have to make it a priority to share our stories. And everybody has to feel comfortable and safe to share their own stories. So I will out myself, and I share this, willingly. But I was a caregiver, and my son was a caregiver for my late husband, who suffered from major depressive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as with substance abuse. And I think whether you're a leader, it doesn't matter what level you are. It's about sharing your story in a real authentic manner so that other people will feel comfortable in confiding in either their management or HR to say, hey, I'm having some struggles right now. What is available to me? So it's about encouraging other people to ask for help. So what I found in sharing my story with my colleagues, and I'm not in HR, but colleagues have come to me and asked me, where can I go for some assistance? And so I've contacted HR. When appropriate, I, put them together. Or if it's external resources with a lot of collaborators like NAMI or APA Foundation or Mental Health America, I put them together with resources, whatever feels the best to help that person. And I think, Chris, you talked about being compassionate and being empathetic. And I think that if we don't do it now, there's never been a more, necessary time when we really need to show that for our fellow colleagues, our peers, people that we work with, whether it's inside the company or outside the company.
Well, so the thing that you just said also, I'm going to piggyback on your comment, which is so wonderfully powerful, I think. I think sometimes if you're dealing with something that's life altering in some capacity, it's so easy to feel compelled to have to name it in a very specific, personal way that then becomes difficult to talk about in the first place. So I think we have to make it okay for our colleagues and employees to say, kind of what you just said, I've got something that's very sensitive in my life I'm dealing with, to be as either broad about your description versus very pointed about it. My point is, whatever way it is that works for you to convey it is okay. No one got up in the morning and wrote the rules for how it has to be described. Who made that vote and won that election? I mean, we gotta create safe space for people to be in the right conversation to get the care and support they need.
That's so important to understand. And do you either Chris or Mary, do your companies offer any kind of forums, like specifically for people to feel comfortable sharing about those experiences, either privately with their managers or with their fellow employees? Because like you say, it doesn't just come to mind right away to share something like that in a standard casual conversation? Do you offer like opportunities for that to happen, or what do you do in that area?
I'll go first. So we don't have anything formalized, but we are supporting the Ken Burns PBS documentary on mental health in youth, and as part of that program is the Wellbeings Tour. What I really appreciate about the Wellbeings Tour is that in different cities, and I think it was in Omaha, Nebraska a few weeks ago, there was a tour, and they take local leaders, whether it's community leaders or medical leaders or scientific leaders, to talk about mental wellness. And it really is a wonderful forum for people to share their own lived experiences and stories. And I think for that, it inspires other people to share their own stories. So quite frankly, as somebody who supports the Wellbeings Initiative, as well as the PBS documentary, we are using that platform so that our employees can get involved. They can participate virtually, but also maybe be compelled or inspired to share their own stories with one another, their communities, their families and friends, because this is the only way that we're going to overcome that stigma.
Yeah, that's great. God, don't you love Ken Burns? I know,
Yeah.
right? Pretty cool.
Brilliant
Our story
storytelling.
at SVB is, I think, very consistent with many other corporations. We are, I think, pretty darn effective in terms of the broader forum facilitated educational experiences. I think, like many corporations, it comes down to manager effectiveness, manager efficacy, to create the safe space for that level of intimate, disclosing, vulnerable, relevant vulnerability kind of a conversation. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, with a measure of humility and humbleness, we've got to, in some ways we're good. In some ways we've got some blind spots we've got to get better at. But I think what's important for us is to always be in the dialogue and keep pressing and keep training and educating our managers that the role of management is multifaceted. And in some cases, you're talking about the core issues around driving your business results, measuring KPIs, so on and so forth. Then there's the other facet of our most effective managers and the role in general that is very much one about humanity and compassion and empathy and context for that then makes business really happen. That's like a lubricant that makes it all go, like WD-40, squirting it in the joints of an organization. Absent that, it's like a gnarly grinding of the gears. So we really try to marry, from a management development point of view and leadership development point of view, that the role itself calls forth some very challenging facets of how we need to operate. But if you really want to have an engaged workforce that's productive, you got to bring it all to the table. That's one comment. The other comment we really strive to do to engender at SVB is bring all of yourself to the table through the lens of DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The notion of masking who you are doesn't result in self-actualization. And I truly mean self-actualization, like being the best you can possibly be and being all you want to be. So it's all linked together, right? It's like puzzle pieces that create a mosaic that's either really beautiful or missing a couple of pieces if you don't get them all in fitting in the right kind of way.
Yeah, and leaders have to model that. Like you're saying, managers need to be open, I think, about their own experiences, their own challenges, and when employees see them do that, then they feel comfortable sharing about their own thing, kind of like you were saying, Mary, as well, about the Wellbeings Initiative tour, where people can hear stories about others' mental health challenges. They feel comfortable sharing about their own. I think that's really a profound thing that can provide hope for people, to know that they're not alone and it is okay to share that. This has been a wonderful, instructive and inspiring conversation. Finally, Mary and then Chris, what words of hope do you have for American workers as they face the ongoing mental, emotional, and physical challenges of the pandemic and things they can do to help improve their own mental health?
Sure. Thank you, Brandon. I think that, from an organization standpoint, if you don't have the expertise in-house, going back to what Chris said, I think One Mind at Work is a great initiative so that you can learn from others who have walked in the shoes beforehand. And then we can all learn more exponentially and evolve our organizations to really optimize that. I think also one thing I wanted to add in is that, look, as employers, you want to attract talent. And young talent is looking for a purposeful, driven organization or something that goes beyond just metrics and deliverables and what have you.
Yeah.
And if that is palpable in the DNA of the organization, you're going to attract the talent that you're looking, for not just today, but tomorrow and the future. So I would say organizationally, I think it's important to look into programs, make sure that you're making them available to your colleagues, your peers, your employees, so that you really get, the most productive, optimal community that you have as a company. And I think that's really where it boils down to. And empathy is, I think, paramount to a lot of metrics that we have to live through. And Chris, you talked about that, and I think that has to be part of the core of our companies, just like D&I is becoming more and more pronounced. And I think it's about how do we take care of one another in these challenging times, because when we do emerge, or as we evolve in whatever environment that we come to, I think we'll all be better for the people who survive this. I'm talking about the companies that survive and thrive in this environment will be that much stronger on the back end of this.
Yeah, that's great. I totally agree with you. I would offer two things. I'm going to go back to one of my opening comments, which is this. For all the viewers who touch the benefits realm, I'm going to go back to my advocacy for One Mind, if I may, for a second. This is for all the viewers. This is not orchestrated. This is really what I truly believe, which is for the benefits providers and HR professionals. What specifically, get your checklist of your benefits coverage, get really schooled and grounded on that. Contact One Mind and ask and share how you think about the core questions, et cetera. And then hold your conversations with your benefits providers with the level of rigor you've never had before, because One Mind will coach you through how to bring the thunder to that conversation. You're paying for a benefits coverage and an approach that you think you're getting what you're paying for. But my learning has been there's a whole other level of rigor and care and level of detail and efficacy that you get to the One Mind coaching of what you should be getting versus what you are getting in many cases. That's my first comment. My second comment is this, making it much more like personal. Here we go. No one died and appointed everyone else the arbiter of how you're supposed to answer the question when someone says, "How are you?" And from a measure of empathy and perspective, if what you feel like you need to say is, "You know what? I'm kind of crappy right now," or "It kind of sucks," or "I'm having a hard time," it's no one's business, whatever the level of detail is. All we want for you to be able to say is, "I'm having a hard time, and I want some help." And in whatever capacity, whatever words you need to use to express that, you do it for you. And that will be enough. Let everyone else come in and be supportive as appropriate. But don't feel like you have to push it to be discomforted, to name it in a clinical fashion or whatever that makes you go one step too far. This is about care. It's about support. It's about empathy. And it's about the realness that everyone in this walk of life deals with these issues. And that's just kind of how it is. So that's my take on it.
Wow. Thank you for that very important realization for our viewers to know it's okay to say that you're not doing that well. And that's kind of a revelation because generally people don't think about that. But it can be so liberating, as we were talking about earlier, to be able to share how you're really feeling and doing.
Well, there's lots of shoulds going on. We should all over ourselves. That's kind of a joke. But, like life is all about, I should do this, I should do that. I should say it this way. I should say it that way. Well, what the hell? No, you shouldn't. You should say it in a way that works for you, given the sensitivity of the issue. Those that fall in the category of others, of otherness, when we try to make the people in the category of others play it a certain way, then they're two legs down in the argument. They get double dipped on the maker-on, which is totally screwed up.
Dr. Seuss had a great saying about that. He said, "Say what you mean, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
That too. Mary and Chris, thank you so much for being with us today on Brainwaves. It's been such a privilege to have you here. Thanks so much for all that you've shared with our viewers today. Viewers, if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to check out onemind.org/brainwaves. Also, if you're interested in learning more about One Mind at Work, please visit onemindatwork.org. Thank you, viewers, so much for participating today, and take care, everyone.
Mental health is stepping out of the shadows and into the spotlight.
I think I need help.
Can you talk?
Struggling.
I'm here.
Depressed. Can't sleep.
But we need the science and solutions to change lives. Now, more than ever, we are in this fight together. We are of one mind, accelerating brain health for all. Help us fund new treatments at onemind.org.